Welcome to the Chronicles of the Christian Drama Queen podcast. I'm your host and the original Christian Drama Queen, Lisa Schaefer, and I'm glad that you are here. I can promise you I know what it's like to think like a lover of Jesus and live like a hot mess daily. And if you can relate, you're in the right place. Everything from the craziness of homeschooling my kids to dealing with infertility, going through adoption, even overcoming deep wounds of abandonment and abuse. Stay with me, sister. I have walked down all of those paths and a whole lot more and have decades of healing and hope that God has simply called me to share with you today. So here we go. Welcome to the broadcast today. Life is busy. Surely I'm not the only one, right? Life is crazy busy. And I don't know about a whole lot of other podcasters, but it seems to me like we have a little trouble sometimes getting into the studio. Stuff's going on, and we have trouble getting into the studio. And so, but this is important. For those of you that listened to my last episode regarding what you do with your church hurt and how hard it is to forgive believers who have injured you, I am here to tell you that God will not let you go. If you think you can avoid addressing your unforgiving spirit, He is not going to allow that to happen. So here's how this kind of went down. And I don't remember how much of this I mentioned in the last podcast, but here's how this sort of went down. 16 years ago, we were part of a ministry, and told the story in the last episode, but there was one person in particular that I was holding bitterness toward, and it wasn't because they had injured me so much. It was because I felt like they had injured my children and my spouse. And it's much harder to let go of bitterness towards someone when you're not the one that was injured, when it was someone that you love that was injured. I believe that when you are injured by someone, when someone hurts you, makes you a victim, you are given grace by the Lord to forgive them. It was your offense. You were the one hurt, and God will give you enough grace to forgive. When someone you love is hurt or injured, and you carry that offense, what we call carrying an offense for someone else, when you carry that offense, and you allow bitterness to take root, it's much harder to forgive the perpetrator that has injured someone you love. Think about that for a minute. You're a lot more likely to blow off someone who said something ugly about you than you are when that same person or someone else says something or does something hurtful to your kids or to your parents or bullies even someone that you just perceive to be innocent and unprotected, and they've been injured or hurt. It's just harder to forgive people when they hurt someone we care about. So 15 or so years ago, this situation happened, and I have struggled with it for all of those years. And, here's the drama queen who's written 2 Bible studies about forgiveness, and I'm dealing with this root of bitterness toward this person. A few weeks ago, I actually began to really struggle with this. Most of the time I just forget about it, don't think about it. But I was in a restaurant, and there was a pastor there that we have sat under before. He's retired now. He was there in the restaurant, and we sat next to them, him and his wife. We sat next to them in this restaurant, and I began to talk to them about, what was going on in their life. They asked us how things were going in our lives, and, we've always shared pretty authentically. I don't not share stuff to the chagrin of my children sometimes. I try not to share their stories so much as I do my story in regard to responding to their stories, if that makes any sense. But we're sitting there talking to this pastor, and I'm telling him, about the Bible studies and how God's been using my mentoring program to help other women find a way to forgive their perpetrators who've abused them and abandoned them, and just absorbing all of his kudos and blessing and whatnot. He said to me, "Yeah, that trying to forgive is a powerful topic and people need it." And I said, "I know, and it's not like I'm perfect. I still struggle." And sure enough, as I'm standing there getting ready to leave, we're standing and saying goodbye, and I'm getting ready to walk out, and I turn around, and the very person that I have all this bitterness toward, that I've been ignoring God when he says, deal with it, walks in the door. And there he is. And I looked down at the pastor and I said, you ever find yourself in a situation where God's telling you to do something and you know you need to do something, but you're kind of trying to ignore it and he just won't let you go? And pastor looked at me and he said, that's just how much he loves you. And that's true. That is absolutely true. But do you think I dealt with it right then? Do you think I went up to this person and had a conversation and dealt with my bitterness toward that person right then? I did not. I hightailed it out of there. I left. I ran from what God was doing. I felt a little bit like Jonah, knowing that God had instructed me to deal with this bitterness and have a conversation with this person. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to deal with it. A week or two goes by. I keep talking to my prayer partners about this, knowing that I need to deal with this bitterness. And they say the same thing. Well, God's not going to let it go. You might as well just do it. And I just ignored it and ignored it and ignored it. But I made the commitment. I knew why I made this commitment. I knew I wasn't probably going to see this guy very often. You ever say, okay, Lord, next time I'm around them, the next time I'm there, the next time we're together in the same building, we're together at the same restaurant, we're together in the same city, and I see them on the corner, I'll address it, knowing full well I'm probably not good. That's never going to happen, right? What do you think the odds are that 2 weeks later, while I'm having breakfast in this same restaurant, my sister-in-law and I were eating there, but we were picking up breakfast to take home. And so I pulled out and realized I had forgotten cinnamon rolls for my boys. And so I went back I turned the car around and I went back into the restaurant. Now listen, if I had not, quote, forgotten those cinnamon rolls, I never would have been in the position to have this conversation. But I did forget the cinnamon rolls and I did have to return to the restaurant. And what do you know, between the time I got in my car, drove off, remembered I had forgotten something and went back, this person walked in to have breakfast in the restaurant. And there I was, committed. I had told God if I ran into him again, I would address this. Now listen, you need to understand, this guy doesn't know I'm angry, bitter, hurt, unforgiving toward him for anything he's done. He has no clue. It's been 16 years. He doesn't know. And I'm not, because in his mind, he never did anything wrong. Nevertheless, he did not know how bitter and angry I was. I knew at that moment, with him being there unexpectedly, I had to deal with this. I had to go up to him and say, look, God's really been dealing with me about something. And you may not even realize that this happened, but when our situation went down 15, 16 years ago in the ministry that we were both involved in, I took up an offense for the injury that my children and my husband felt because of some decisions that you made. And I just want you to know that although I've been struggling with this, God has really been wrestling with me to the point that I know I need to let you go and I need to forgive you. And he looked at me and his eyes rolled up and he was like, if I have ever done anything to hurt you or your family, I am so sorry. I do want you to forgive me. I didn't know. And just like I said, he didn't know. I knew he didn't know. Saying those words, I did not want those words to come out of my mouth. I did not want to forgive him. I did not want to release him. I wanted some sort of apology, some sort of reconciliation. I wanted him to acknowledge that there was some pain in my life because of his choices, or there was pain in my children's lives because of some choices. I didn't get that. And I wasn't going to get that. I mean, obviously he apologized kind of in a generic way. Look, if I've ever done anything, I want you to know I don't want to hurt people on purpose. And I believe that. But here's the point of my conversation with you today. I've been talking about forgiving the unforgivable. I've written 2 Bible studies, one that focuses more on my own story and forgiving the abandonment of my father as well as some abuse. But the second Bible study is the Christian Victim's Guide to Forgiving the Unforgivable. And everybody's got somebody in their life that it's very difficult to forgive. And the more I have this conversation with you, the more people come into my life and the more God reminds me, you haven't really let that one go. You haven't really forgiven this one. You maybe don't think about it much. You maybe ignore it. You maybe try to pretend that it's taken care of, but deep, deep down, you're still bitter. And I want you to be free. So when his spirit began to talk to me about dealing with this particular person and this situation, and I tried to run like Jonah, God made it clear, I'll just bring the fish right to you. I will bring the fish right to you, and you will be running for no reason at all, because you're going to end up in front of this person and you're going to deal with this bitterness because it's what's best for you. Sister, let me ask you, are you ignoring a bitterness that you need to deal with, that you know deep down you need to deal with? Because I'm telling you, if he's been burdening you to forgive, he's not going to let you go, because that's how much he loves you. Well, I guess that's going to do it for me today. Thanks for joining me today on the Chronicles of the Christian Drama Queen podcast. I'm Lisa Schaefer. Listen, there are a couple of ways that you can get a hold of me, right? Some of you do need to go through this mentoring process and you want someone to help you facilitate freedom. That is exactly what I do. Just go to freedom.christiandramaqueen.com. freedom.christiandramaqueen.com. You will sign up for my emails, which are not very many. I don't send out a whole lot of emails, but I do continue to communicate with you about whatever your needs are, and it does give you a way to communicate with me. So by all means, freedom.christiandramaqueen.com. I'll send you a free resource to get you started, and of course you'll get a free coaching call with me so we can actually talk about whether or not you want to walk through this freedom process. Okay, so go there, freedom.christiandramaqueen.com. And of course you can just go to my calendar and set an appointment with me. Calendar.christiandramaqueen.com is another way that you can do that. You can find me on Facebook. You can find the Christian Drama Queen on YouTube, all of these different things. And please share the podcast. The more I share it and the more I talk with people, the more I'm finding there's a need to discuss the things that I bring up with you during my podcast. So share it with a friend. Give me those ratings, reviews, likes, loves, whatever it is that the platform you're listening to does for you. And listen, you know I love you.